An organization known as Doctors for Harris continues to push for former President Donald Trump to release his medical records. Here's AFN's Chris Woodward.
Former President Trump is 78 years old. Vice President Kamala Harris is 59. Harris has released her medical records and wants to know what Trump is hiding by not making his public. But Twyla Brace of Citizens Council for Health Freedom says it's no one's business to know what another person's medical history is, even if that person is a candidate for office.
Medical records are confidential, and we do not care what kind of candidate you are, but no candidate, including for the president, should be forced to reveal their medical records to the American public or the news media or anybody else's prying eyes.
Brace adds that medical records do not reveal what kind of a president someone may be.
And even if they look healthy today, they could have a heart attack tomorrow. So this is not anything about assuring anyone that these people are healthy or have the capacity.
As a result, Brace sees this push by Doctors for Harris as more of a political stunt than anything else.
This is not what physicians should be doing. They should be taking care of patients. They should not be trying to push one candidate over the other, and they certainly shouldn't be asking for somebody's records to be revealed to the entire American public. That's not the role of a physician.
I'm Chris Woodward.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg met with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper in Asheville today to discuss the ongoing recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene. The governor gave a special thanks to the secretary and the Biden-Harris administration for their support.
I've had discussions with Secretary of Transportation. That's why he's here today. They've already provided $100 million in emergency money for us to begin the process. We're sitting down with him right now to make sure that we are working on the priority federal roads.
More than 250 people were killed by Helene across the southeast. New data shows retail prices went up in the month of September. Here's Fox Business's Edward Lawrence.
In the strong retail sales numbers today, some experts say people are spending more on fewer items, not buying more things. Grocery prices are up about 22% from the month President Biden and Vice President Harris came into office. Fox News polling shows 40% of registered voters believe the economy will decide their vote. Immigration, the second most important issue. In an exclusive interview, I pressed Treasury's chief economist Eric Van Nostrand about celebrating the fall in inflation with higher prices.
What we're seeing now is levels of inflation that are consistent with a healthy and stable, low unemployment economy.
This administration prioritized programs to help bring some costs down for some Americans as overall prices keep rising. At the White House, Edward Lawrence, Fox Business.
PPG, a global manufacturer of paints, coatings, and specialty materials, is laying off nearly 2,000 workers. The cuts will impact positions primarily in the U.S. and Europe. The Pittsburgh-based company said it is part of a comprehensive cost reduction program focused on reducing structural costs primarily in Europe and in certain other global businesses, along with other corporate costs. Find more news online at afn.net. I'm Robert Thornton.
America is at a crossroads.
We're talking about November 5th. The consequences of this election are broader than even sometimes I grasp.
You only have two options, to vote or not vote.
AFA at Home takes a deep look.
Pray for fair elections, that God's hand is over these elections.
It all impacts you directly. Make your voice heard.
Don't miss this special edition of AFA at Home on AFA Stream. Visit stream.afa.net to sign up today. Stream.afa.net.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here, host of the program. Joined by the corner contingent right across from me, my man 100 grand, Mr. Bobby Rosa. You know, he's recovering from the pre-show show. We always have a pre-show show before we open these microphones. I don't know why Jeff don't like to come in for the pre-show show. I don't know. He's delicate, you know. He's like, I can't come in there. It's too rough inside. I'm kidding. Jeff Mack. J Mack is producer extraordinaire, often imitated, never duplicated. Some try, but many fry. Some might even grow wings so they can fly. They might even lie, but we won't deny. The cost is low, but the price is high. Well, let me stop. Snaps. Thank you for tuning into the program today. I'm still recovering from that Bret, Baier, Kamala Harris interview that I saw after I left the studio last night. Oh, boy. You know, I don't even really want to talk about it, but I will. But I will also discuss what it immediately made me think of, and I'll get to that in a moment. At this very moment, many of you, if not most of you, are making your transition from your part-time jobs where you generate an income to your full-time jobs where you cultivate an outcome. And as you do so, I want to remind you to do it with intentionality. I know we are in the throes of an election season. Early voting has already started all around the country. I believe Georgia started early voting this week. Election day is November 5th. Even though that is the case, we should never forget that what happens in our homes, what happens in your house, is far more important than what goes on in the White House. That's the truth. Election season doesn't change it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't vote. Absolutely, I'm encouraging everybody to vote and to cast an informed vote, not just to vote emotionally or ignorantly, but to cast an informed vote. Do your research, do your homework. I know a lot of attention is given to the top of the ticket with the presidential election, but you have to understand there are 34 U.S. Senate seats that are available, that are up for election right now. All right? You have every House of Representatives seat that's up for election right now. You have various state legislatures. You have elected officials in your various states that are up. You have municipal elections. You have school board elections. Be informed and cast an informed vote. But make no mistake about it, outcome cultivation must be pursued even more vigorously than our civic engagement. We should engage civically, absolutely. By God's grace, you know, I voted in every election I've been eligible to vote in after turning 18 years old. Make sure that's correct. I think I might have missed my first one because I turned 18 when I was in college. And I think I might have missed that one. But thereafter, the very next one, and from every election after that, I have been consistent in my civic participation. There's a long story that goes into that. But glory to God, man. Glory to God. Watching that, you know, and I'm going to describe this more when we get to it, but if you, I don't really think the interview last night changed anybody's minds, you know, and I really don't think there are too many people at this juncture who don't have their minds made up. There may be a few, but I don't think that moved anybody. And it just exposes something that is just gallingly embarrassing. Because you have people, and I'll just be plain, in the Democrat Party who have such disdain for our country, they'll abandon the entire party process. You'll like, for example, Tim Walz talking about we need every vote to count in every state, but you'll be on the ticket with a candidate for the presidency that didn't get one vote in Democratic primaries. Not one. Because when you deal with regressivism, the agenda is always the objective. They don't care about process, constitutional fidelity, none of the stuff matters. The agenda is what matters. That's how, I won't go into too far into that. But I'm looking at this, and as I've described to you before, anybody who would say to you they were surprised by Joe Biden's mental decline, they're lying. I'm talking about the people who are around him. They're not telling the truth. Because listeners to this program, you know, we've been telling you this for years. You know, you can just watch later Joe Biden versus earlier Joe Biden. You can see there's a decline going on there, you know. And so then you have the debacle on June 27th, and then all of the same people who is telling you, oh, he's right as rain, he's fit as a fiddle, they go, oh, I can't believe it. Do you believe it, Jeff McIntosh? Can you believe it? Not the computer with the little Apple signal, but the producer of the program. The man has gone crazy. Can you believe it, Mr. Rosa? We had no idea. I'm like, man, you guys are lying. And then you want to talk about an empty suit. Then you put up, and this is why they haven't allowed her to do interviews and things of that nature to this point, because they know. They know that's why when she ran for president in 2019, none of the Democrats wanted her. That's why until she got the Servpro rinse job, that the Democrats would say, man, this is the worst vice president ever. That's what they were saying. And then all of a sudden, ta-da. And it made me think that these people have such disdain for the country that they're willing to even do that if it would allow them to hold on to what they perceive as power. Which brings me to the word of God. Because when you have those kind of things transpire publicly before our very eyes, it's vitally important that we are able to discern spiritually what's happening. What is happening by and large in our country, brothers and sisters, is that popular electoral candidacies are reflecting the core of our nation. Not every single person, and I know the overwhelming majority of this audience is a part of the remnant, but we cannot put our heads in the sand as to what's happening in our country. Like when you think about, I was just reading a report today that you have 10 states that are pursuing, state abortion measures where the murder merchants have generated 10 times more revenue than the people that are fighting for life in the various states. 10 times. How is that possible? Because you have, at a minimum, people that are far willing to invest money for, I'm going to call it what it is, demonic Molech worship. Then we have people that are willing to fight for life because the Molech worship is connected to sexual immorality. Call it what you want. You can talk about the red herrings. You can talk about the exceptions as if they are the rule. But the bottom line is that is what's happening. That's what's happening. And it made me, the Lord brought this scripture to mind. Isaiah chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. Isaiah is appealing to Judah, who is rebelling and in rebellion against the Lord. And this is one of the things that God said to Judah through his prophet, Isaiah. Chapter 2, verse 7. Their land has been filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures. The land also has been filled with horses. There is no end to their chariots. The land has also been filled with idols. They worship the work of their hands, that which their fingers have made. Rebellion is real, but the Bible diagnoses a particular type of rebellion that takes place within a context of material prosperity. And oftentimes, the people who are in rebellion will insulate themselves against the conviction of the Lord with their prevalent material prosperity. They won't say it, but they'll think it. Man, surely we can't be that bad because look at all of this, how we got it going on. It happens often, with people who are entrepreneurial. They're very driven, they're very business minded, and they're so focusing on getting that money, getting that dough, making this happen, making these shakes, signing this deal, getting this agreement, that they're willing to allow their spiritual life to drift. So content. Not everybody. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I've seen it enough times that this is sometimes the pattern that it takes to become so focused on the hustle, if you will, that the spiritual exercise and the sharp edge of discernment and the consistency and commitment to the Lord can be allowed to drift. The next thing you know, the convictions are reduced. And then you're engaging in environments where in the past it would bother you. You wouldn't do it before. And then next thing you know, you're watching certain things and listening to certain things and having audience, fraternity with guys who you wouldn't have when you were sharp. And then the drift is continuous but imperceptible. And it takes an external phenomenon to snap you back into reality. This is one of the things that the Lord was confronting through Isaiah. Your land is filled with silver and gold. Yeah. Where's your hearts? Your land is filled with treasures. Yes. Where are your hearts? Your land is filled with horses. At that time, the prevalence of horses was an indication of wealth. We have all manner of innovation here. America with the largest GDP in the world, the largest percentage of a population with disposable income. Obviously, not everybody, but generally speaking. There is no end to their chariots. Chariots were indicative of military superiority and innovations, almost like an old school forerunner of a tank. And then look what the Lord said. Their land has also been filled with idols. In the midst of all of this, the land is filled with idols. The people moved away from God, began to worship things that they've created. Man, look at this business. Woo, woo. Look at my portfolio. Woo. Look at my family. Look at my home. Man, my parents couldn't imagine living like this. Ooh, look, we have this going on. Ooh, we have this going on. We have all of these things going on. Not even able to discern how far we drifted from the Lord. Here you have, and I don't mean this to be an intentional insult, but Kamala Harris is vacuous. What I mean by that, she is a non-substantive, unserious person. She's an unserious person. When you are asked substantive questions and your answer is, well, I grew up in a middle-class family, you're not fooling anybody. That is a social filibuster. Yet there are potent forces pushing for her to have the nuclear codes, who refuse to acknowledge the irony that, ma'am, you are in office now. I didn't even get to it. I had Jeff prepare the graphic on her, opportunity agenda, for more melanated men, for black men. The immediate question everybody should be asking is, if you're so hot to trot on this policy agenda, how come you ain't doing it now? Why don't you do? How are you going to advertise yourself as a page turner? We're turning the page, moving fast the former generation when you're in office now. And then have the audacity, if people want to ask you questions about it, to wax with another word salad. We'll follow the law. And we have this, and I don't want us to limit our perception as to what's happening based on mere partisan analysis. We have to have the integrity and the honesty to zoom out, look at what the Word of God says, and then look at what's happening in our country. You want to talk about a constitutional crisis, guys? We're in a spiritual crisis in our nation. And I think it's vitally important to show up, if where you are, if you're an early voter, whatever you want to do on November 5th. But you know what I'm praying about? And I'm going to talk more about this because I want to have a time of, invite you to join me in a time of fasting and praying. But I'm thinking about the day after. Who are we going to be on November 6th? If the Lord allows President Trump to be not only the 45th president, but the 47th president of the United States, what's going to happen? Will we see that as an occasion to be like, well, all is right in the world? Or will we recognize, God has given us room to breathe. Let us take advantage of this time that we have. Because if you're not noticing, there's drifting happening, whacked out wise on the Democrat side, but also whacked out wise on the Republican side.
A Discipleship Minute with Joseph Parker.
What should a pro-life church look like? What are some of the priorities, attributes, and perspectives of a local church which seeks to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our nation today as it addresses life issues? A pro-life church needs to be a praying church. Through prayer, they help to usher in the presence of God into their church, and they share the heart and the mind of God with the culture. It can help a church family and an individual believer to both ask and receive the answer to another important question. The question the Apostle Paul asked immediately after he met Christ in Acts chapter 9, verse 6. Lord, what do you want me to do? And a very important companion question is this. Am I really seeking to honor the Lord in doing what he would have me to do as an individual disciple of Christ to help stand for life?
Mistakes are obviously best avoided, but part of growing up is understanding that nobody's perfect, not even parents. Hi, I'm Mark Gregston with Parenting Today's Teens. It's inevitable that everyone fails. The trick is knowing how to fail forward. It means learning from your mistakes and keeping yourself from repeating them. So here are a few ways you can practice failing forward in your own life. First, admit when you're wrong. Don't make excuses. And second, apologize to those you hurt. And third, ask your teen what the consequences should be for your own failures and carry through. Remember, your teen will blow it one day. But if you teach them how to fail forward, you'll give them an invaluable tool for every stage of life.
Find more parenting help from Mark Gregston when you go online to parentingtodaysteens.org.
Danny, the baby just rolled over for the first time. Oh, what a strong little boy.
That a boy, son? You're on your way.
Oh, who's my strong little man?
Rollovers can be milestones in life, some early on and some later. One rollover you might consider is from your individual retirement account to a charitable gift annuity with the AFA Foundation. If you'd like to increase your retirement income and leave an impactful gift to the Work of American Family Association, the charitable gift annuity is a worthwhile option. To learn more, contact the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345, or email foundation@afa.net. If you own an IRA, would like to increase your charitable giving, but need retirement income, the IRA to CGA rollover may be for you. Call the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345.
Shining light into the darkness, this is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here. I want to be clear about something I just said. In no way am I attempting to insinuate that there is more equivalence between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. It ain't even close. What I'm saying is that we should not be ignorant in recognizing what's happening as our entire culture is moving in the same trajectory. But as it stands today, there's no way. I mean, you got the baby murder zealots. You have the sexual rebellion advocates, not just zealots, but advocates for it, even with to add not only baby murder, but the mutilation and the chemical castration and a whole bit of children. Children, you have the willingness to forcibly confiscate your neighbor's wealth in the name of government programs. I mean, there's no end to it. And so they're not morally equivalent. And I'm saying this biblically. When you align them, you can look at the platforms of both parties currently. And I know there have been some significant changes on the Republican side, but it is undeniable when you evaluate them both biblically that they are not morally equivalent. So I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying on that point. But we have to be discerning. And when I'm talking about what are we going to do on November 6th, regardless of how it ends up, and there I go again, assuming that we're going to have a totals tallied on November 5th. They're already sending out warnings. Hey, don't expect the votes to be counted on November 5th. I mean, who remember those good old days, right? What I'm saying is, after the election, what are we going to do? Where will we be? How are we going to respond? Pray, yes, and obey. And obey. Put feet to our commitment. Put into practice what God is requiring of us. All right. That's another good point. Pamela says, and don't forget about the rhinos in the Republican Party. Well, of course. Cannot forget that, Pamela. To this debacle last night. And there are lots of ways you can take this. There were salacious things that happened. But frankly, I'm not interested in the salacious stuff. and I want to be as objective as I can, but frankly, Bret Baier's interview with Kamala Harris yesterday just confirms why her handlers don't want her doing these interviews. That she does not perform well when she has to answer substantive questions and when the questioner will not accept her word salad filibuster answers as replies. She just does not. It was obvious that she was expecting a contentious interview because she came in very defensive. You could tell when she had her opening salvo of prepared talking points versus her responses to question as the interview went on. It was obvious as the transition took place. But even with the prepared opening salvos, there were still patented efforts to avoid substantive answers to the questions that were legitimate, not because of the questioner. See, what people have to realize when you do these interviews, the whole purpose of the interview is to make an appeal to the American people, not to the person asking you the question. So, and I know how it goes. The people that are already in the tank for Kamala Harris, they're going to come away saying this is the best interview ever, and then people that are opposed to Kamala Harris are going to say it's the most horrible interview ever. But I'm trying to be very objective, and I'm going to give examples of what I'm talking about, to where there were substantive questions asked, questions that the American people are interested in, questions that I know people are interested in hearing the answers to because they asked me these same questions. And so I'm going to start at the very beginning of the interview. As expected, Bret Baier came right off the top asking her about immigration. And rightfully so, because the majority of the American people, even polls indicate that immigration is one of the top line issues that people are concerned about in this election. So when asked, and I'm going to start with clip number 4. Bret Baier begins the interview by asking her, the current occupant of the vice president's mansion, if she knows exactly how many illegal aliens have come into our country during her administration. It's clip number 4. Listen to and watch clip number 4. Go.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. You know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a
which
number?
is-
Do you
but-
think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
It's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of 6
system
million people
that
have been
needs to be-
released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
Okay. Stop it there. I'm going to pick up from right there with the next clip. But here's something everybody needs to understand. All right? Just because someone offers a response, it doesn't mean that that's an answer to the question. I've explained before, in courts of law, when attorneys are asking questions to witnesses under oath, whether you're examining them on direct examination or cross-examination, when you ask a question, let's say, for example, I'm cross-examining a witness, and I ask a question, and the witness provides a response, but the response does not answer the question that I asked. Here, Bret Baier asked, how many illegal aliens have entered the country during the administration? That's a very clear question, right? What is the question asking for? A number, right? Now, I get that she doesn't want to give a number. I get that. But he asked her for a number. She proceeds to provide a response, but she does not include a number. You know, if she was on a witness stand and we were in a court of law, I would stand up, objection, Your Honor, non-responsive. The judge knows when I object non-responsive, what I'm saying is that I asked a question, she is providing an answer with words. Sorry, she's providing a response with words, but her response is not addressing my question. Not objection, non-responsive. That's what would happen in the court of law. Here, Bret Baier asked a question. She offered a response that is non-responsive to the question he asked, and then becomes upset and defensive that he wants to get her to answer the question asked. That is literally what happened. And she took it as, oh, you're interrupting me while I'm answering. It's a very simple question. Now, you can provide a response, then an explanation for, you can provide an answer, then an explanation for your answer, but he's asking for a specific number or an estimated number. But what he's asking for is a number. He's not asking for croutons and romaine lettuce and tomatoes and cucumbers, verbally, of course, otherwise known as word salad. So the interview continues, and it's clear right from the beginning she does not want to answer the question. She doesn't want to answer the question. So he presses further to try to say, hey, let's have this conversation about immigration, not just the meandering word salads. Let's have a real substantive conversation about this issue. Listen to and watch clip number 2. Go.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship.
Now, this is where I get really annoyed with her and people like her. Because this is where, once again, the disdain for the American people comes to the fore. And, I see her earrings. People on the live stream commented, those earrings, though. I see those earrings. But them earrings ain't help her in this interview. So Bret Baier continues to press his question about immigration and gets even more specific. You guys, among the 94, approaching 100 executive orders that you reversed day one, you also rescinded the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy that particularly applied to those who were seeking asylum. Like, you want asylum, you have to apply for it before you get to our border. You can't just run up in my house and ask me if you got room. You have to give me a chance to see if I have room before you come in my house. They rescinded that. And so then she immediately pivots, and she might have done this in other contexts before. I'm sure she might have done it in some speeches, but I've never heard her do it in an interview, where she now, for the first time since in her candidacy, in response to a question about illegal immigration, she presents the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. And again, this is where I get irate. For several reasons. First and foremost, she wants to present the lack of the U.S. Citizenship Act passing in 2021 as if, that's the reason why we're having a problem at the border. What she doesn't tell you is that the Democrats had the House of Representatives, had the majority in the House of Representatives in 2021 when this measure was proposed. The Democrats had a majority in the U.S. Senate in 2021 when this measure was proposed. And, guess what? They also had the White House. So you're going to bring up this bill as if it's the reason why the border all of a sudden magically had people pouring over, when just weeks ago, when Trump's policies were in position, we didn't have illegal immigrants pouring over our border. And the reason I'm saying it shows disdain for the American people, because it is frankly a flat lie. So you're trying to say that it's President Trump's fault and the Republicans that the Democrat didn't get a bill passed when they had all of the authority concerning what legislation comes to the floor? Then, beyond that, do you know what the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 was? Guys, it was an amnesty bill. It was an amnesty bill that was so bad, even the Democrats realized, we shouldn't do this right now. We shouldn't do this right now. But she throws this out because she expects the American people to refuse to go and look up what she's talking about. And it don't even take a whole lot of time. While you're watching the interview, you can do a quick interweb search, U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. You can pull up the legislation from Congress's website, and you can read the bill for yourself. That's not a bill that would stem the flow of illegal immigrants in the country. That's actually a bill that when you pair it with the rescission of the Trump administration's executive actions, it's a bill that not only facilitates illegal immigration, but you instantly make all the illegal immigrants citizens. You instantly make, not citizens, you instantly make all of the illegal immigrants legal. Like that. That's what that bill was. So for you to present that as if, well, hey, well, we presented a bill within hours after taking the oath of office. Yeah. You presented a bill to do what you ultimately wanted to do by having our borders overrun with illegal aliens. And the reason why I'm pointing this out, not just about the highbrow, clickbait, viral videos, but to have a substantive conversation. This is a slap in the face rhetorically. You think the American people are so stupid that that's your answer? The premise of the question is, our nation has been overrun with illegal immigrants since you've taken office. Your response by that answer is, yeah, we wouldn't have the problem if we just make them all legal. That's what you're saying. And it just shows the disdain that these people have for the hardworking, everyday American citizen. They want to work us to death. They want to tax us to death. They want to force us to undergird all of their fanciful spending whims. And then say, shut up and take it because we know what's best for you. We don't care what you think about Ukraine. We're going to take your money and send it to Ukraine because it's best for you. We don't care if you care about your border. We don't care about your border. So we're going to take your money and then let all these illegal aliens into our country. No, your country. Shut up and take it. It's crazy. And I know it's short. I'll run one more clip for you. Because Bret Baier set up the next portion of his question by naming young women who've been murdered by illegal immigrants. Jocelyn and Gary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley. And after all of those things happened, those murders occurred, Kamala Harris had the audacity to say, yeah, the border's secure. Bret Baier had a salient question for you. You said it was secure then. When did it become a border crisis in your mind? Listen to and watch clip 3. Go.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear. I think we all are.
Again, somebody got the red rubber ball out because she's playing dodgeball. She said the border was secure even after these young women were murdered. Then she flipped, and all of a sudden, the border is a problem. Bret Baier's question was, when did you conclude that the border was in crisis? When did you come to that conclusion? She, whoosh. Immigration has always been a problem. No, ma'am. We didn't have 10, 12, 20 million illegal aliens coming into the country when Mr. Trump was in office. That happened under your watch. So now that you care about the border, Bret Baier's question is one the American people will want to ask. When did you recognize it was a crisis?
You know, President Biden has chosen not to seek re-election, but have you thought about the implications? One of his pet projects is to fill the federal judicial bench with as many liberal judges as possible. As a lame duck president, he'll push the Senate to do just that. We've seen the president's cognitive decline, and we have to urge the Senate to freeze the confirmation process now. Please take time to visit afa.net, get all the information, and send the email to your senators today. That's afa.net.
Hello, I'm Don Hawkins, here to tell you about Encouragement Live. 55 minutes of industrial-strength radio encouragement featuring resourceful guests, plus practical biblical insights to help you face life's challenges. We'll be taking your phone calls, so plan to join us for Encouragement Live, Saturdays at 7:05 p.m. Central, 8:05 p.m. Eastern, here on American Family Radio.
God's sovereignty. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. Scripture declares, "The Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his sovereignty rules over all." We see God's sovereignty all throughout Scripture in the way he causes or allows all things. We marvel and praise God for his sovereignty when he ordains events that save or bless. But we question God's sovereignty when literal or figurative storms cause pain and suffering. God more than deserves our trust during the hard times, for he causes all things to work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Hear our most recent program on God's sovereignty with Pastor Grant Castleberry at thechristianworldview.org, and then tune in this weekend as Mike Gendron joins us to discuss the Reformation.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people, obviously. But what's more, MediShare members like it a lot. Their satisfaction rate is 98%. Imagine that. And MediShare is a proven thing, too, for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing. If you join before October 30th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee, so you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is October 30th. So call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number: 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video "When Your Faith is Illegal" by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. just having a legitimate conversation about this, and I do want to give Kamala Harris credit in what appeared to be for a moment, I felt like she expressed empathy towards the families of these young women who'd been murdered, but it was like just a glimpse of a moment, and it's almost like I can't do that. Can't show any empathy because then it could damage my electoral prospects, and it's just. And I'm not saying that was her calculus. But what I did perceive was a moment to where it seemed to be some empathy toward the Nungary family, the Morin and the Riley family, but then it was like a half a second, then right back to, but I got my script that I have to follow. And it's just, it's just wicked, man. Bret Baier got to the point in the interview where he asked in 2019, and this was a part of a litany of questions or several questions, maybe like one or two, maybe even a third, where he was basically presenting that she had such a radical departure from a position she's held all the way up through her presidential run in 2019. Now, all of a sudden, she's changing all of these positions. And he even said, like, you supported allowing illegal immigrants into the country, and when they got here, they could get driver's licenses and free tuition at universities and get enrolled in free health care and all of these things, and said, do you support these things? Of course, she said no last night. And then he said, well, why did you nominate Tim Walz to be your running mate? Because he signed all of these things into law at the state level in Minnesota. Every single thing I just mentioned, driver's licenses for illegal aliens, tuition at state universities, free tuition for illegal aliens, enrolling illegal aliens into free health care. Tim Walz supports all of those things. So how can you on one hand say you don't support this when you nominate a person who literally not just supports it, signed those things into law? Of course, no answers. No answers. And several times she was just stunned. I'm going to show you one of those moments in a moment. It won't be this next clip, but the one after that. Bret Baier, and this, in my opinion, was a softball. He brought up, you showed up on The View when asked, because you keep saying turning the page, we're going to turn the page. You showed up on The View when asked, okay, you want us to turn the page, well, what would be different about your presidency from a Biden presidency? You literally said nothing. Nothing comes to mind. Nothing? Nothing? I'm coming in and say, hey, Bobby, we're going to have a brand new show. Bobby says, hey, what's going to be different about the new show from the old show? Nothing, Bobby. To which Bobby goes, you sure it's a new show? He said, then again, you had another appearance where you were asked the exact same question. And you literally said nothing. And he asked her that as well. Look at this, guys. Clip number 5. Go.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C.
Ma'am, and like this is what I'm talking. And guys, and I'm showing this to you. I'm sharing this with you for the substantive assessment or the lack thereof. So the first time on The View, she goes, nothing comes to mind. She gets a rerun on the Colbert Show. This dude's a comedian. This is not some hard-hitting journalistic outfit. She goes, well, I'm not Joe Biden, and I'm not Donald Trump. Ma'am, you know the question that is being presented to you is asking what substantively, policy-wise, since you're saying your presidency wouldn't be a continuation of the Joe Biden presidency, the obvious question is, how would it be different? She says, well, obviously, I'm not Joe Biden. And she says that like, yeah, you should take that one to the bank. It's obvious that the question is asking you for substantively, policy-wise, would be different. Where do you and Joe Biden part ways? How will your presidency be different? You know what the real truth is? It won't be. And she can't admit that. Because she literally goes from saying, I'm not Joe Biden and I'm not Donald Trump. Then she goes on to say, and I haven't spent most of my career in Washington, D.C. Guess who else hadn't? Donald Trump! Donald Trump has not. So my point in presenting this to you is simply to show when I say she's vacuous, this is what I'm saying. If you at home listening to me right now and you were asked, how would your presidency be different than the incumbent in the office currently, you would probably be able to give me at least 5 or 6 things right off the top of your head without any preparation. But this woman has all the handlers, the debate prep, the cute earrings. And she still cannot say how it would be different. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying vacuous, substance-less. This is what I'm saying. I'll give you another one. Man, I got to hurry up. This seemed to really catch her off guard. She was going on a roll talking about, basically it was Orange Man bad. That was her screed she was going on. Then Bret Baier hit her with a slider. And by the way, since we're talking about mental stability, when did you first, because you were hot to trot saying Joe Biden he's tough, he's strong, he's mighty. When did you first notice his mental faculties appeared diminished. Watch her pause and reaction. I mean, those earrings didn't help her at all. Clip number 6. Go.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And
but,
Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump.
Again, substantive concern. Ma'am, the question is not who's on the ballot. The question is your judgment and your integrity in office. See, this is one of the things, and I would have followed up with this. Bret Baier didn't follow up with this. Do you realize that the 25th Amendment gives the vice president solely the prerogative to invoke it? Solely. So the question is a legitimate question. You felt like you were so willing to recognize his mental debilitation that you were willing to step in to campaign for the presidency. When did you first recognize he was diminishing? Because a couple days before you become the candidate, you were saying he was right as rain. The question literally goes to your competence. It goes to your integrity in office, your willingness to exalt Constitution over personality, over party. But of course, I think she knows that and doesn't want to step into that field. Back to the word salad. These are substantive issues that are worthy of conversing. And since we're talking about the Harris-Biden administration, this next story really bothered me. And I'm transitioning quickly because we're running out of time. Bevelyn Beatty Williams. This is a woman who had a tortured life. She had her first of several abortions at 15 years old. The Lord radically saved her, according to her own testimony, and she became a pro-life activist. She protested abortion around the country in numerous places. One protest in particular in a murder mill in New York led to her to be arrested and charged with violation of the FACE Act. She ultimately went to trial and was sentenced following the trial. She turned herself in yesterday to 3.5 years in prison, 41 months in prison, plus an additional 2 years of probation or supervised release. I want you to listen to a little bit of her talking about her sentencing. Clip number 8. Go.
You know, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting the judge to rule on the time that prosecution was requesting. I just didn't expect, you expect a judge to just want to do what's right. They see criminals daily. Lawyers and judges see criminals. They know a criminal when they see one. I wanted the judge to do the right thing. And I just walked out of there just heartbroken. I was heartbroken and devastated. And I mean, you know this, I called your wife crying. I was so hurt. And it was so surreal. Like I was hot and cold at the same time. I just couldn't believe 41 months plus 2 years of supervised release. It just was like, oh my, this is overwhelming. But, they made it very clear, a lot of people, thousands of people watched you stand in front of that abortion clinic and make the stance that you made. And, before they get inspired by what you did, we're going to give you a serious sentence and we're going to make a statement. And they were not secretive about it. They made that very clear in court. And so it was devastating, Dinesh. It was devastating.
The Harris-Biden administration has made it their priority, while the Manhattan County is letting out violent criminals. The Biden-Harris administration has made it a point to prosecute people who are pro-life. Bevelyn Beatty was prosecuted under the FACE Act, which prohibits, I'll just read the statute, prohibits by force or threat or by physical obstruction intentionally intimidating or interfering with or attempting to injure or intimidate or interfere with any person because that person is or has been or in order to intimidate this person or any other person of any class of persons from obtaining or providing reproductive health services. It's the bottom line. What Bevelyn Beatty was accused of and tried for and ultimately convicted of is that she prohibited, first of all, employees from the abortion clinic from entering the abortion clinic. And then later when they had moms who were coming to abort their babies, she, by obstructing the front door, forced them to enter the staff entrance. All right. First of all, I believe the FACE Act is an unconscionable, unconstitutional law. That's one issue. But what I want to focus on right now is the sentencing. What Bevelyn Beatty was accused of basically was a trespass, and they elevated it to a felony because it happened to be an abortion clinic, a murder mill. And because the Harris-Biden administration is so committed to murdering children, they want to make an example out of this mom who has a 2-year-old of her own and a husband of her own and say, no, we're going to send you to prison. Now, I can tell you as a prosecutor, we don't send what's commonly described as non-violent offenders to prison for non-violent offenses. Trespass is a misdemeanor, generally speaking. But no, they want to make an example out of her. Remember what I told you Wednesday? Or when Trey Dellinger was here and we talked about the Harris-Biden administration's intentional intervention in the Tennessee case to force children to be able to be mutilated and to be sterilized. And here you see the commitment to Molech is so profound that they'll send this woman to prison. What we are facing, and they're attempting to appeal, her legal team are doing all of those things. But what we are facing, and I'm going to run out of time. I had a clip of her husband talking about this as he was dropping her off at the federal prison. It's too long. I know I don't have time for it. But this is what we're talking about. These are the priorities. These are governmental priorities. Lock up a mom herself, who because of her own trauma suffered from her own abortions, she was attempting to warn other moms to not do what she had done and to share with them the love of Jesus Christ that she had found that led her to have a complete reversal of her fortunes, where she now is a wife and a mother herself as a Christ follower. Yet, we have regressive investment in this country that is so vile that they're committed to putting her in prison. Not just convicting her of a trespass, but putting her in prison. That's evil. That is evil.